There's a lot of people who don't really acknowledge the gravity of AI and how much it's impacted the industry and the world. I think those people are in denial. Basically, I don't write a single line of code without using an AI companion to do it.
The big question on our minds is, will AI automate software engineering?
What we've done is cut out, basically replace the coding labor, I would say. Like that is essentially a solved problem when it comes to, I know what needs to be written, who's gonna write it, the AI will. So you may have been a great engineer that the company cannot fire 2 years ago, but let's say you don't want to leverage this super high leverage tool now, like you become potentially less valuable than a worse engineer who's able to leverage the AI tool well. Life is gonna continue to change faster than it did the last 5 years. So it's accelerating.
Michael, a friend of 20 years, somebody that I respect a lot and love as a friend. And he is also a software engineer, a senior software engineer currently at Square. And he's also ex-Facebook. So I guess total, how many years?
About 10 now.
About
yeah,
a decade.
Since I started.
Yeah, a decade of software engineering. And so today we're going to be talking about software engineering and AI. I know that this is an educational podcast. And at the same time, I think that education is very interested right now of what's going to happen with computer science, how it's going to evolve, especially what's happening with all the entry jobs right now, especially in computer science and software engineering. It seems like a lot of layoffs are happening. And so we just don't know what the outlook is going to be. And so speaking to somebody who is in that field and deep in the weeds of everything with leveraging AI to use and write software, I think it's going to be a huge treat for us. And yeah, but before that, do you want to add anything to your introduction, Michael?
No, you captured it pretty well. Just, I guess, I love talking about this stuff, not necessarily on a podcast, but I just love following tech and thinking about how it affects our future. I love diving deep into the philosophical aspects of it and how it affects things like meaning in our lives. So I'm excited to dive in. Like we've done these types of conversations in the past, but yeah, it's like a passion of mine to think about this kind of stuff.
Yeah, definitely. We do have a lot of philosophical conversations and this meaning of life and what life is going to look like after AI and the world of AI. Let's get started. Tell us just a little bit. I want to know, what is your role right now at Square? What are you doing? What are you building? And tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so Square, for people who don't know, is a financial services company. So you guys, long time ago, like 10 years ago, there used to be those little readers you could plug into the phone to accept credit card payments. So same company, now we have those POS register devices at coffee shops and farmers markets and all sorts of places, restaurants now. And what I do at the company is I work on the developer experience team. So our purpose is to serve our engineers internally in the company and make them go faster or help them go faster. So it's unblocking all sorts of things. Like we just look from the kind of like a holistic point of view, like how can we help our engineers move faster and compile code quicker and things like that. And so all sorts of creative solutions to do that, which is nice because we're not like pigeonholed into doing one kind of solution. Like it could be like an engineering solution or a solution. So it's really fun as an engineer to work on a team like that.
So you basically help other developers to develop more efficiently and effectively.
Yeah.
Wow. Awesome. And I know that you recently shaved off like 20%, like 15% of efficiency time, and you're pretty proud of that.
Yeah. I was proud of it because I was able to just leverage all that I've learned in the last few years on a different team. So I joined a new team recently, and I'm happy that a lot of the skills and experience translate over. I'm able to come into a new space and have impact pretty quickly. And so it's very rewarding when you can compound your experience and knowledge like that to continue to be useful in a new space.
Yeah, I know I feel like you're a pretty huge component of compound interest, whether it's through investing, and that's why Bitcoin is such an interest for both of us. And also just the knowledge too. Knowledge compounds on itself. And so starting early and investing, like DCAing your knowledge as well so that it can compound. And I know that just we say 15%, but it actually is like pretty significant in terms of the hours being saved across the company, right? Like 1 hour for the company is like a lot of money. So you're technically saving, like, how much would you say? Just, I don't know if you can.
Yeah, I'm not going to say specifically how much money it would, but you're on the right track by thinking about incremental costs and savings producing like bigger results when you take it at scale. So an example is just if you shave 15 minutes off of a process that 100 people are doing every day. You could do the math.
Sure.
Because I'm horrible at arithmetic.
Yeah.
But over the course of a month, over the course of a year, and even not just human time, but like the compute time that you're using in the cloud, like these things can really scale up to be like hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. And so projects in the past, like I've gotten to see that kind of impact. Random note though, like companies, typically these big companies who are in growth mode care more about like the hours that you're saving than the compute costs. Because really we're throwing money at the ability to move faster and the ability to create more products in the market.
For sure. Yeah, definitely if you scale it out. So even if you're just saving like 15%, but with 100 people for however many years, that's a lot of time and a lot of money. And awesome. So going into a little bit about software engineering and AI right now, how does that look like? And also, how has it transformed your work and changed your work these days?
That's a big question. It's really changed everything. And I say this kind of abrasively a little bit, but there's a lot of people who don't really acknowledge the gravity of AI and how much it's impacted the industry and the world. I think those people are in denial. I just want to make that very clear.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I'm not talking about people talking about it in everyday life. I'm talking about engineers. There's still a lot of engineers that reject it. I think for principled reasons. And I just think at this point, you could only say it's on principle versus the reality of what's happening. And so I could go on about how it's changed things in our industry, but you just ask any engineer at any company who's paying attention and they would say it changed everything. So it's changed the nature of my job. Like basically I don't write a single line of code without using an AI companion to do it. And it's changed the way we build our products. Like it's not just like on an individual level, how much time does it save you? It's what are we aiming to accomplish because we could accomplish so much more. Are we using my own time to write this code, or are we going to have an agent go do it? So it's just changing how we do things. And of course, in terms of software products, we're rethinking all of our products to how do we integrate an AI into it? So we're Square, for example, our company is now having AI into our software. And so like small businesses talk to their AI agent about their business. It can be like, what's my revenue this month? What should I take on or what should I take off my menu because I want to reduce my inventory? Something like that. This is all of our products will now have AI in it. And I'm sure every other company is thinking the same way.
So there's so many thoughts that came to mind. So first of all, you talked about engineers being in denial, right? I do want to touch on that. And engineers who reject it on principle. So I want to know what that principle is. And creating an AI agent for small business owners. And that's going to give them insights that are actionable. And I also want to touch on that point because that's what we are trying to do actually right now. But tell us a little bit more about the engineers and their rejection on principle. What does that mean and what does that look like?
Yeah, I don't know how much time we want to spend on it because I don't know if the people listening to this is probably not rejecting it as much.
Sure.
But there are, I would say it's the people like they would consider themselves purists, like people who've been doing it for a long time and really care about knowing exactly what you're doing and taking full responsibility for that. So people who pride themselves in that, which is great. These are the people that we look up to as engineers. And I think it's just a personal choice to say, I don't think we should delegate this much to AI because AI is not perfect. You're going to see mistakes every day. But in my perspective, they're denying the productivity gains you get from it to preserve the purity of the craft, which I can respect. I just don't think it should be a person like that should advocate for the whole organization to be like that. I think that's just denying the company productivity. Yeah. But yeah, I have seen several people like this and honestly even leave the company due to issues like that. Also, there's the aspect of AI taking up a lot of energy to both create and run. And so you definitely do see AI thrown everywhere, and I'm sure it's using up more energy and compute than required, but it's a bet that companies and the industry is taking as a whole to say, yes, it costs money to run, even ask it a question, right? To ask a question versus a Google search is going to take more energy and compute to run that. But it's just, we're all leaning into that direction as an industry.
So essentially purists are people who want to keep the craft pure, and they feel like using AI is not modeling it, but defiling the craft.
At least for them. I'm not going to say that they think that for anyone else using it, but it seems like it's a personal preference that, look, I want to figure out, like, I can write this line of code myself. I can figure out how to implement this feature by myself and do it in the best way that I think should be done, or the best way I think. And I don't need to run this unnecessary process in the cloud to do this. And so that's respectable. An example that people use to compare this to is modern programming languages. Mm-hmm. So modern programming languages are a technological advancement on top of lower level languages like assembly, or like at the end of the day, everything is zeros and ones bits, right? But we don't write code in zeros and ones. And in the 90s, there were like game developers who are like really down in the low levels, like managing memory at a very low level. And when modern programming languages, as they continue to evolve, they take care of a lot of those things for you. I'm a modern programmer, and so I'm not worrying about memory management as much as people did back then. And back then, I think there were a lot of people who would say engineers should know about all this. Engineers should care about memory management, but we don't. So that's like an example that people use to compare, like, how we have new tools to build things now, and you don't have to care about the same thing I did when I was learning how to program.
So that kind of conversation is actually very relevant to education, because there are teachers who are also AKA purists, and they're like, AI is defiling to the practice that I have, right? At the cost, I think, of student growth, their relevance, skills being relevant in the greater world after they graduate. So I think just across the board, it seems like that is the trend with AI. There's like the early adopters, like you, me, and the people who are like, no, this is going to change everything. And like you said, you don't touch a line of code anymore. And so for people to be in denial of that, would you say that definitely that's hurting the productivity of the company, right? For these purists to not be using AI. And the reason why I asked that is because for educators too, like in school districts and schools that are like banning AI, like if we hear from like a software engineer who's out in the world, be like, no, it hurts our company to do that, then that would speak to us as the educational world, being like, okay, if the educational world is there to prepare them for the job world, and the job world is saying that no, purists, in this sense that we understand it, is actually hurting the productivity of the company, which then makes you less marketable and less hireable, then we would then look at our systems and be like, okay, let's look at what they're doing and let's design our educational system in a way that is going to support the roles that are going to be available for them in the future.
Yeah. I do want to clarify that I'm not saying that you must use AI or you're denying productivity, because I was listening to one of your episodes before, and one of the examples you give is like knowing which screw to turn, right? And so some people's jobs are having like really precise, sharp, domain specific knowledge and like doing one change, that one tweak that matters a lot. You may not need AI to continue to have impact like that, but to wholesale say we're not doing AI and it's strictly worse or something, I think when you make claims like that and will decide for a large group of people, that's definitely denying productivity gains. So I'm not saying you use AI for every scenario in every case, but it could definitely be applied in a lot of scenarios. And for anyone trying to be productive and do more, it definitely has its place. So I just want to clarify that. To your point about preparing people for the future, 100%. I think we all know this. Like you're better off knowing how to use these AI tools. Now, I don't know how early you should introduce it, like in terms of for a person's development. I wouldn't prescribe get babies to start using AI immediately. So I don't know when's the appropriate time to introduce. But yeah, if someone is going into the market, the job market, and would I choose someone who effectively knows how to use AI and understands roughly how they work versus someone who denies it or doesn't want to touch it? I think that first person is going to be much more effective.
Sure. Yeah, I know you talked about expertise. I know that there are some software engineers, and I think you might play this role too. It's like you change a line of code that saves like a huge impact for the company. And a lot of times just, right, it's like, I see all of this code. It's like, if I just go there and just tweak this one little thing, it just saves massive amount of energy or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, something along the lines of that. So I would imagine in those cases where it's very expertise driven, then you probably don't want to be vibe coding on these. And at the same time, generally though, and like you said, I think for any organization to broad stroke say no seems like it's pretty detrimental to the productivity of any organization, whether it's CS or software engineering, finance or whatever, and also in education as well. And yeah, the question about how early, right, is definitely something that people are wondering as well. And I thought about it a little bit, which is that I think number one, just technically, if you don't know how to speak, if you don't know how to read, then you probably should not be using ChatGPT because you don't know how to read. Mm-hmm. And I think the second thing is, I think it really has to do with like kids' discernment, being able to say, hey, this is good, this is bad. And also being aware of anthropomorphism, which is kids think that because it sounds so adultish, that it thinks it's an adult, therefore it starts confiding in the AI more than a human being. And I think it's important for the kids to understand that this is just a autocomplete on steroids. It's just statistically just guessing what the best word is going to be following whatever the word it is, right? And so I think there's some conversations about that piece, but anyways.
Yeah, by the way, I have a 2.5-year-old daughter and I use Gemini with her sometimes.
Oh, yeah. How has that been?
I'm going to be honest. We used ChatGPT at first and it sucked so bad we moved on. Like it just didn't understand her that well.
Dude, yeah. ChatGPT, bro, like lately.
The voice?
What the heck?
It regressed a lot, it seems.
Yeah, what's happening with ChatGPT, bro?
I don't know. I know they're in like panic mode right now. Apparently, Sam recently, just like yesterday or something, put out an announcement. We're going to put all these other products on pause. We're going to get ChatGPT, like the main chat feature, like the quality up higher because Google's killing it right now.
Yeah,
Gemini.
Google Gemini. I've been playing around with Google Gemini. Dude, it's so good.
So good.
Yeah, it's like ChatGPT when you talk to it, it's so many emojis and it talks everything into like bullet points. But anyways, tell me more about your daughter.
Yeah, so my daughter, sometimes she's learning how to talk a lot. And I'm like, I'm not, like, we don't give her iPads or anything like that yet. But I think I thought I would be a little more protective about technology with her, but it turns out I'm not. And there's nothing wrong with her having a conversation, supervised conversation with this machine. And I'm very clear with her that this is a robot. And so it's really interesting that she's you growing up so differently from me, because now she's able to talk to a robot that could talk back and have these general conversations about any topic. She's even learning to talk to Alexa and request a song. And she'll be like, Alexa, what's your favorite color? And then Alexa will give an answer. What's things like, Alexa, what's your favorite food? Alexa will be like, I'm a machine, I don't eat. And she's a robot? And she's like trying to understand, like, oh, this is a robot. And so I'm very clear with her that Alexa and Gemini are robots. But yeah, we can ask Gemini to tell her a story, talk about Disney characters, whatever, and she enjoys it.
Wow, that's actually very fascinating. And the reason why it's so fascinating is that there's all of these high school teachers whose kids are like 16, 17, 18, some 19, 20, I don't know if they failed some classes or whatever. But the fact that you're having your 2-year-old, I think the word that stands out to me is supervision and guidance and adult, like seeing what's happening. And under that kind of supervision, I think it is safe to play around and be exposed to that. And I think that's same with education. But I did want to go back and hit a point where we were talking about those purists. And if there was, and not that you would do this in any way, and if there was a way for you to convince, or if you are trying to, let's just say, convince a purist to at least try out AI to do their work, when clearly this is not the case of expertise, where they have to not use AI. What are some things that you would say, or what would go through your mind in trying to maybe have a conversation with them about it? What would you say? What kind of mindset would you have? And the reason why I ask is because that's a lot of the things that we as educators are thinking about as well, because there's a ton of people who are like those purists. But what would that conversation look like? What would be your thinking rationality behind it?
At this point, at the end of 2025, like, I would be surprised if there are people who are literate with computers that aren't using it or haven't tried it. I would think that the people who aren't trying it is like for a personal reason, like they are morally against it or something. But I guess some of the things I would encourage them to do is replace, or you move some of your like Google searches and like research, study, that kind of, those types of actions, and try using Gemini or ChatGPT. Just because when it comes to learning, it's so nice to be able to go back and forth or like precisely ask a question that you're wondering about. Because with Google, it's like you can get pointers to articles about topics that you may care about, but to ask a very specific question that you have, a certain topic, I think that's where these LLMs can shine. Other use cases are like summarizing long articles, or if you want to replace menial tasks like writing an email or writing some kind of review, they're obviously good at generating texts. So yeah, I would start with basically use cases like this to say, hey, I understand that you don't want to use it for perhaps your main job where you find you're most valuable in, but could you save time by offloading these tasks for all these other things that you don't really care about? And that's what my CEO, Jack, emphasizes when he talks about AI. Let's just get rid of all the work that we do day to day that we have to spend our time on because there was no alternative, and let's let AI do all that so we could focus on what we were doing 20% of the time, which was like where the real work is, where the real taste comes in and the real creativity comes in, and spend more time on those things. So he frames it more as let's save time by doing away with all the things we don't find valuable. And that I would guarantee that everyone could find a way to utilize AI to save them time. I don't know if we want to get into the more moral kind of principled aspect of it. I'll just say that these companies are incentivized to make AI as cheap as possible to run. It's free to use it, right? But it costs them something to run. The technology is just getting better so fast that if you as a user of the API, so if you want to utilize AI in your app or something, right, you have to pay per token. And so these costs are like falling, right? And so that means they're learning how to get more efficient with it as well. And basically I don't think it's a huge concern that it takes some energy. It's just, in my perspective, it's just inevitable. There's no stopping this train. And so if you're hoping to stop the AI by not using it, like it's a hopeless cause.
So is it like, so thank you for mentioning all the different ways of being able to use the AI to automate some of your like menial tasks so you can focus on things that are most important to you. And does it take a huge amount of consumption of energy where it's like impacting the environment? Is that one of the more reasons why people are not using it?
I think that's the reason I hear, or one of the reasons I hear. I can't tell you like per million tokens of usage, like what it does to the environment. I don't know that. I know that this has been a concern for several decades because what we're talking about here is like running these data centers, like these big data centers that take a lot of energy. And so I know that over the last few decades, like they're getting better and better at building data centers in a carbon neutral way or with renewable energy. And so this is not a new issue. It's just there's a lot more demand for it. And so I would say as a society, like we're good at, or as a civilization, we're good at creating data centers. So I don't know too much about that. I just know that basically none of these problems are like a novel problem. It's just being scaled up tremendously right now. Yeah. And they try to, like these organizations try to use renewable energy and be carbon neutral, things like that. Like these are typically metrics and KPIs that they care about.
Okay, so data centers potentially using a lot of energy, which can potentially impact the environment. Okay. So one thing that you did mention is just talking to AI to learn, I think is, so when I have conversation with you about finances, because you've been compounding knowledge about finance a lot longer than I have. So when I talk to you, there's like terminology that you use that I just go over my head. I need to understand that term. Like you were talking about grok something thing. And I was like, why is he using grok? Isn't grok like AI or something? But then I just took a screenshot of that chat. I talked to AI and then I started talking to it and getting clarity. I was like, oh, so that's what he's talking about. And so that's how I actually sharpen my knowledge about pretty much anything now, which is I just talk to it until I'm like, oh, I understand now, and I have a very clear understanding. Before I used to go back and forth with you, and which is nice. And now with AI, I could just keep doing that like forever. And Google Gemini actually does that a lot better than ChatGPT. Every time I talk to ChatGPT about this stuff, it just feels like I'm running in circles. It's just saying a lot of words without saying anything. It feels like. But Google Gemini, when you talk to it, and I ask it, okay, what do you mean by this? It says words that actually mean something different the second time that it talks back to me. And so I think generally with kids learning too, I'm sure there is a way for education to adopt this kind of new way of learning where, hey kids, if you want to master something, your knowledge about pretty much anything, whether it's physics, math, art, just like start talking to it and refining the knowledge. And I think that's why access to knowledge now has become extremely cheap. And we talked about this in the past. It's all about agency. Do you have the willpower, or not necessarily willpower? Do you have the desire and the, I don't know if discipline is the right word, but could you get yourself to a point where you're acting upon whatever dream or thing that you want to pursue? And if the kids can discover that and they can act upon that desire, they can learn anything and become masters at anything. What do you think about that?
I think it's all correct what you said. And let me know if I'm taking it too much of a different direction or getting too philosophical. But what I'm starting to realize is like there's this aspect about the unknown unknowns that makes all of life hard. So like finances you brought up is a good example. Like everyone knows, okay, I should invest in my finances. I should invest like in learning this kind of stuff. But I think most people who get into it, it's like there is this very specific way that they learn. And it's, for me, it's like someone just getting you to invest your first stock. And for you, I got you into it and I told you to buy Bitcoin. Like just do it. And we talked through it. And you did it, right? And once you took that first step, it changed everything. But that's the part where I think also you have some specific knowledge probably from your business, Ometa, is you may have access to all the knowledge in the world, but somehow we still don't know how to make the step in the right direction. Yeah. So that's the part where it's probably $1 billion, $1 trillion question and answer to solve. It's like maybe it's agency, but like you need to know what your aim is. Like we created a business, or we tried to create a business a year ago and we couldn't do it, or we didn't succeed. But someone who's a serial entrepreneur who has multiple exits and have built like profitable businesses would probably come into our situation and be like, here's all the things you're doing wrong. Yeah. But even if AI said that to me and pointed those things out, it'd be like, yeah, sure, maybe AI. Like these all sound right. But like when a human comes in and comes in with like experience and the specific knowledge that they've gathered, they know. So I think I'm like hard switching topics, but I'm like really curious about what this is that I'm trying to describe.
Yeah. No, for sure. There's like when the human comes with expertise and speaks to you about it, I would have not invested in Bitcoin until you were like, all right, Jay, let's do this. And then you got me like the first stock, let's buy it. And so definitely there is that point there. And I think we could go down this rabbit hole, and I'm going to bring us a little bit back to software engineering, if that's okay with you. So the big question on our minds is, will AI automate software engineering? And I think the answer is pretty much no. And that's what I think. And it seems like I shared with you a little bit, is that the hype of, oh my gosh, AI is going to take over software engineering, all software engineering jobs are dead, now everyone's going to get fired, doesn't seem like to me from the outside looking in to be true. It seems like the entry-level jobs are just being completely cut out because so much, I don't really know why. Maybe you could speak on it. My hypothesis is that a lot of it was just, I guess now AI can do it. So it seems like the entry-level jobs, whatever the skill set that required one to do those jobs, are now being replaced. And so and you still need the architect or the mind to be able to orchestrate everything. So it seems like we still need software engineers. Speak on that. So the question is, in your opinion, will AI take over software engineering?
I think it already has taken over software engineering. Just to answer your question very directly, like I said, it's changed everything. It's changed the nature of it. And I also agree with you about your point about cutting off most of that entry-level position, because software engineering to some degree was like, you could think of it as like labor, for the same way you think about labor in construction, like in physical home construction. Like you need somebody to hammer that nail in. So every piece of line of code back then, just 5 years ago, had to be written by hand. But now most code is not written by hand. You just prompted this computer to do it and it did it. And so you basically, what we've done is cut out basically replace the coding labor, I would say. Like that is essentially a solved problem when it comes to, I know what needs to be written, who's going to write it, the AI will write it.
So you're saying, okay, so typing, I could see the typing being gone.
Yeah.
And at the same time, like for example, just a thought that's coming up, Base 44, right?
Base 44.
So these are AI apps that help you create
Oh,
apps. I don't think they will ever replace like software engineers because there's like complexity with software engineering that only a human can do. So what you're saying is that the actual typing part is gone?
Yeah. So given an app, right? Given a pretty basic app, like that is like a personal project, right? Like in order to fully productionize that app, it would have taken, let's say it takes 3 engineers to create this app and 4 months to do it, like what we were building back then. But I think now one person can do it who is knowledgeable in software engineering or has experience. One person can do it in a weekend perhaps, or a week. And so if we keep all else equal, like you just don't need as many engineers anymore, right? Well, a lot of that process, a lot of that work has been replaced with AI. I think the big question is, does the demand for engineers stay the same and we grow to higher levels of productivity? Because that's an outcome, right? Like I said, all else being equal, like you need less people, but that's not how the world works, right? If you have the ability to create more, and you're making a lot of money doing it, you may want to keep hiring engineers so you can like exponentially create more. So I don't know the answer to that question. I don't know how the industry what kind of demand there will be for engineers, given that we have more productivity output. It could just be like, I think there are metrics on this though, because there is a lot less engineering positions open compared to 5 years ago.
True.
Yeah.
And if everybody's trying to scale up super fast, then they should still have a little bit more openings than potentially now because they're hiring more so that they can scale more.
Yes, if you have the means to do so as a company, and you have high ambition, then you want more help to do it.
Sure.
Yeah, but what I just said is there's less job openings than there were back then.
Sure. So what you're saying is that one person could now do a job of, I don't know, let's just say 10 people, but you still need that one. So then what makes that one special or unique such that the other 9 would lose their jobs?
I think the people who will more quickly lose their job is like those coding laborers that I mentioned before. So when you first go to a coding boot camp that used to be around, I don't know if they're still around, but they just teach you mostly how to implement something. You don't come out with a ton of experience, and a ton of knowledge on how to scale up a proof of concept into production, or you don't have experience debugging some network bug or something like that, right? It's just more like given some specs and an idea of what you want to build, like here's how you make the back end, here's how you make the front end. And that's valuable because there wasn't enough people to be able to write those lines of code back then. But now it's like these AI models are getting better and better at that. Like apparently Gemini, I haven't tried it out, but Gemini is extremely good at creating apps. I've seen some demos, it's just insane. Like one prompt and in one shot's like this full stack app that's perfect. The example I saw was someone said, write me HTML only, or one file. I'm sure there's JavaScript, but one file where it mimics Windows, like Windows OS, and it has the browser, it has Word on it, it has all the apps. And then it one-shotted it, and you have this web app where you can literally double-click into opening up Word, and then bold, italics, it all works. You open up a browser, and it basically has a browser within a browser that you can type in a website, and it one-shotted that. I'm like, holy crap! So that something like that would have taken I know that's a play example and you can't really productionize that, but even if you wanted to just do that as a fun project, it would have taken you months to write that by hand, but it did it in 10 seconds probably.
Wow.
Yeah. So I know that it's like, there's always these like examples where it's like, it's once you get past a certain point, it's complex and stuff, but you just can't deny how much value we just got from being able to code that.
Yeah.
Just like pure time saving.
Yeah. No, that's crazy, right? For you to be able to one shot. I used to try to one shot things 3 months ago. It didn't one shot very well, but man, to one shot that, dude, that's like absolutely insane. Okay, I'm going to continue to press on this a little bit more here. So then, yes, I can see how it can one shot things and it's just so good, right? And yet there's still that one person that remains. What about that person keeps that person in the softwaring position while everybody gets let go? What is unique about that person?
So the person who, like, let's say the company decides to keep.
Yeah.
You have to cut, let's say you're cost cutting, and like what gives that person value?
Yeah.
Is value to the company.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's what really matters is, can the person, first of all, there's a couple things, okay? So one is, are you able to use AI to that degree, right? Because that's a skill in itself.
One-shotting things?
No, because not everything is going to be a one-shot. The one-shot example highlights how much potential value you can get from AI, I think. But it's definitely not going to do that every time.
Sure.
But you can, the quality of your prompting and the quality of the process of how you use this tool lead to drastically different results. But I think basically, are you able to leverage the technology is maybe the most valuable skill right now, because it's such a new emerging technology that it's like, there's a lot of people who don't lean in enough. So you may have been a great engineer that the company cannot fire 2 years ago, but let's say you don't want to leverage this super high leverage tool now, like you've become potentially less valuable than a worse engineer who's able to leverage the AI tool well. So that is probably the most valuable thing as an engineer right now, is can you properly leverage AI? But in order to do that is the second thing, but I think separate, is, do you have the domain knowledge, the expertise, the experience, the taste to know what you want to build? And that feeds into that first one. If you need to know how computers work to properly leverage the AI tool. But it's like, it's separate because there's different amounts of, you can have really high skill, like 100% ability in that second one, and have 0% in the first one where you're not leveraging AI tools, even if you're an excellent engineer.
Sure.
So I would say those two things is what makes an engineer really valuable right now.
And I think, so the first thing that I want to touch upon is taste and judgment in software engineering. And I think engineering, period. I think a lot of people think that engineering is very just set in stone. You just do it this way because it's the best way. But I think there's a level of taste and creativity when it comes to engineering, where you're like, if I systemize or code it this way, it just makes it so much more fluid or more beautiful and things of that nature. I don't understand it completely, but like Rock understands this, where you just have this beauty about the way that you designed a thing, and it's beautiful because it's efficient and effective and so on and so forth. And we don't need to go into that piece, but I just wanted to touch on that piece. And when you said leverage AI, could you break that down for me? What does it mean to leverage AI in a software engineering world? Yeah. And then I think because those skill sets, I think, is universal, potentially. But what does it like? Could you break that down for us? What does it mean to leverage AI in the software engineering field?
Yeah. One aspect of the leverage is, are you even willing to use it? If you choose for a given task, like if you say, no, I will not use AI, then you're at 0% leverage of AI, right?
Sure.
So and I point that out because there are people who are like that, right? And so a willingness to use it is one aspect. Second thing is, do you just one modality is take your content, put it into a ChatGPT window and chat with it. That's the most basic modality of how you use AI. But there's like now all these emerging ways that you can use it. It could be like something I built at my company is like we proactively basically take this AI context. So like we have these failure logs, like in compilation, we compile our apps and then sometimes they fail, right? Or a test fails. We had this system that proactively, as soon as a failure happens, feeds it into the AI and saves it in a database. And so when the user looks at it, they are able to see the AI summary and the AI extraction of what the failure is. And so that is better than what I just described is better than when the user sees the logs, they have to do the copy and paste and figure it out themselves. So that's like a different way that we used AI.
Wow. Okay, so what you're saying, okay, so the first one is, are you going to use it, period? So if you're not using it, then you're 0. Second is put your code base in there and you're like new to the company. So you're wanting to learn the code base so you can talk with it and chat with it. What you're sharing is that there has been parts of software engineering, like that log thing, like if something breaks, now it gives an error that breaks something, shows the log. It used to be done by a human. This entire process is now completely automated. So a high-level engineer with AI now is, so the skill is so you have to have a level of domain expertise where you are able to recognize that these are the parts that can be automated and now know the domain expertise for you to then automate this piece.
Yeah. So you're like knowing this is a good task that people are spending minutes on every day, like that they don't want to be doing. Can this be solved with AI? Some cases, no. In some cases, yes. For those cases that are yes, is let's do it. Let's build that thing. And that wasn't just like random shot in the dark. Let's just try AI everywhere. It's like having the knowledge and judgment. Like, yeah, I actually think AI could solve this problem really well. And then we're going to do that. And so another way, I guess you could think about it is like, you can use AI for your own tasks. And then the solution I just described, where we do that proactively, we did that for the whole company. So we've just want a few people like me and a couple teammates were able to build this for the whole company. And so no one has to do that 5 minutes multiple times a day anymore.
And as you're sharing, the domain expertise that requires for you to discern the aspect of your job or your life that can get automated and then have the resources then to automate the thing. I think in software engineering, there is that aspect where it's been automated. And I think this is where the startup world is right now. Is like literally this part is generating, I don't know, billions of people just now figuring out what can be automated and can I automate it? And if you do that well and better than everybody else, then you have $1 billion. Not everything, but certain domains where you do that, I think you could make a lot of money. Not that's like the purpose of the podcast, but that's very interesting.
Yeah, so that was an example of leveraging AI, right? We're talking about what does it mean to leverage AI. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't mean you throw it at everything. It means you know where it's useful and you know where to apply it and you do it.
Sure.
Yeah.
So then I guess ultimately the thing that unlocks the ability to identify is the domain expertise.
Yeah.
So domain expertise seems to be the bottom floor, the most important skill set.
Yeah, I don't know if I would call it the most important, but it is a prerequisite, I would say.
Interesting.
But the thing is, even that is up for question because it's like domain expertise comes with experience and time and investigation and all that, right? But a lot of that you can now, so for someone who is high agency, can pick that up much more quickly. So something that would have taken 5 years to get domain experience in, it's possible that someone who's like a bright, open-minded person can pick it up in a month if they had to. So I really think a good engineer would be able to go into any part of the company, any software system, and spend a few weeks or month at max, and understand not every intricacy of it, but like enough to be dangerous.
So then it would come down to high agency.
We're like trying to boil down what's the exact thing that leads up to every other thing.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do, I think.
Okay. Yeah, if you're trying to boil it down to one quality, that's the most important thing.
Interesting. And I think the reason why potentially I wanted to get there is because if that is truly the skill, because I don't think software engineering is just a field, but every field has been impacted now a bit with AI. So if that's the truth for software engineering, I think we could say it could apply to almost a lot of the industries. So if agency is truly the most important thing, that the question is, how do we develop agency in our students and in ourselves? And that obviously is another question in and of itself. So to wrap this up, it's been 58 minutes.
Nice.
To wrap this up, where do you see AI in the last 5 years, really quickly? Okay, just in the next 5 years, where do you think AI is going to be? What's your future prediction on it? And then maybe concluding thoughts.
I used to try to project, but now I no longer think it's that useful. I think it's useful to ponder about, but I'm not going to make any predictions just because I think it could be much faster than what we typically predict, or much slower. I don't know. I just don't know. But I do know I'm betting that it's going to change a lot. Like life is going to continue to change faster than it did the last 5 years. So it's accelerating. So I'm focused on these questions that we're talking about, not predicting what's going to happen, but reflecting on what is required to be most adaptable. And so I think it's a really good conclusion we just came to, which is high agency. I don't know if this is baked into high agency, but being curious is like what I want to cultivate in my daughter. A lot of the stuff I think about for my daughter, what do I want to cultivate? Being curious, being open, being just like really like optimistic. Because I think if you're pessimistic, you're closed off to learning and growing and things like that. And so just being like an open-minded person that's willing to learn and adapt and like welcoming change with open arms is what I want to cultivate and what I want to cultivate in my daughter.
Thank you for sharing curiosity and optimism into the future. And yeah, there could be a lot of fear around this stuff. And at the same time, I think it's a good parting word for us. It's to stay curious, stay optimistic. And yeah, I think that's a good ending. Thank you so much, Michael, for taking the time to sit down on the podcast.
It's been fun.
And for those of you who are listening, any last words?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
And for those of you who are watching, thank you so much for listening to the AI Math Guys podcast. I hope it was helpful to you. And I will catch you guys all next episode. Bye.